Resourceful Designer, episode 245, how to get people to like, trust, and want to work with you.
Welcome to the Resourceful Designer podcast, offering solutions to streamline your graphic and web design business so you can get back to designing. And now, your intro guy, always available for your next voiceover project, Wayne Henderson. That's me, from MediaVoiceovers.com. And oh, here's Mark.
What was that all about, Wayne? That's not the script I gave you. Nah, just kidding. Seriously, if you need somebody to voice your next client project, or your own project for that matter, if you need a voiceover person, please reach out to Wayne. He is an amazing guy to work with. As you can hear every week on the podcast, he does a great job. So if you're looking for somebody, visit MediaVoiceovers.com and tell Wayne you heard him on the Resourceful Designer podcast. Now, in this episode of the show, I'm going to talk about improving your chances that new contacts will become new clients. I'm also going to share a great resource for making stylized text very easily. Now, what have I been up to? It's been a bit slower week this week, client-wise that is. I've only had 2 podcast cover arts to do, and I've only worked on 1 client website. I've got a couple that are still on the go, but I'm waiting for the clients to get back to me or waiting for some content to finish things off. But I did take advantage of that little lull in work to do some of my own things. For one thing, I'm in the process of updating the resources page on the Resourceful Designer website at resourcefuldesigner.com/resources. It's very outdated with what's on there. In fact, some of the resources listed on that page aren't even around anymore. So I thought, it's really long past due to get this updated. So what I did is I hired a virtual assistant to go through all 244 episodes of the podcast and create a spreadsheet listing all the resources and tips of the weeks that I've shared since the beginning. And now that I've received that, I'm in the process of going through them and deciding which ones are, first of all, still valid, because some of the resources I shared are no longer available, or I don't necessarily suggest them anymore, especially the ones I shared 5 years ago. But the ones that are still valid, I'm going to add them to the resource page. So once that's complete, any resource I mention on the podcast, you'll be able to find it on that page. So you may want to bookmark it and visit it on a regular basis just to see what sort of things there are. And you'll be able to find that at resourcefuldesigner.com/resources. Plus, letting you know about it gives me a little bit of accountability to actually get it done. So some of the stuff has been updated already. You'll notice that some of it looks a little different than other places on the page. But if you keep visiting it over and over, you'll notice that it is being updated, and soon it'll contain all the resources. So that's what I've been up to. Now, speaking of resources, the Resourceful Designer community is a great resource if you are starting or if you run your own design business. Every member of the community is eager and willing to help the others succeed by sharing their own advice, their own tips, encouragement, feedback, critiques, and of course, their own resources that they find and discover. Now, as of this recording, the community is still closed to new members. It will reopen on March 1st. However, anyone who signs up at resourcefuldesigner.com/community before February 1st will get early access and a special bonus. So if you're running or at least thinking of starting a graphic design business, why don't you invest in yourself by signing up for the Resourceful Designer community today? And now this week's resource of the week. This week's resource is ArtText. It's actually ArtText 4, version 4. And what ArtText does is it creates stunning headlines, logos, and so much more. It's an artistic text creator. Now, it is Mac only. Sorry if you are a Windows user, but it is a Mac-based program. But what ArtText does is it allows you to take any text, any words, and turn it into art. So you can create realistic metallic type, wooden type, gel, paint, even chocolate-looking type. There are so many different options. And all the type is fully editable. And I don't just mean the type, but I mean the look is fully editable with an unrestricted set of options. The only limit really is your creativity. You can adjust the textures on the surface of the type, the surface maps if there are some, the light spots, the shadows, and so many other settings to create your own unique materials. I've seen people create type that looks like it was created out of jam or honey or ketchup for a menu and stuff like that. And that's not to mention their 3D modeling engine that helps convert any text, any symbol, or any pictogram into 3D. And again, fully adjustable. You can change the angle of the 3D, you can change the shadows, the highlights, the whole bit. There's just too much to talk about for such a little program on this podcast. Now, I've been using Art Text since version 1, and I thought it was great back then. But now version 4 is out, and it's so much better. In fact, it's let's call it my secret weapon when it comes to creating amazing stylized text. Yes, you can do stuff in Illustrator and you can do stuff in Photoshop and you can get actions and you can get styles. But Art Text just makes it so easy to adjust it to exactly what you want. Not to mention warping text and all those sort of features. Just imagine doing a poster for a coffee shop and writing the headline in a font that looks like coffee beans. Or creating something for a bakery and the headline looks like it's a frosted donut. The text is all frosted with sparkly on it and it looks like a realistic donut. Or creating something for an auto body shop and the text looks like it's rusted metal that's being fixed. Well, you get the idea. And to top it all off, this software is only $29.99 US. So Art Text pays for itself the first time you use it. So if you are a Mac user and you want to check this out, visit resourcefuldesigner.com/arttext and let me know what you think of it. And now, how to get people to like, trust, and want to work with you. For your graphic or web design business to succeed, you need to find clients willing to work with you. I mean, without clients, it's a given that your business will fail. But with so many designers to choose from, how do you get clients to pick you over the competition? Now, if you're a longtime listener of the podcast, you've heard me say many times before that clients prefer work with a good designer they like than an amazing designer they don't like. And that's what it comes down to. If a client really likes you, they'll be more inclined to hire you. But how do you get somebody to like you, especially if you only have a few short minutes to talk to them and to make an impression? My father was an amazing salesperson. He worked for several companies over the span of his career. He was in the electrical supply industry. And for lack of a better term, he was a rock star at it before he eventually retired. And he made an amazing impression on every single company he worked with. In fact, he won numerous Salesman of the Year awards and then several Sales Manager of the Years once he was promoted to sales manager. And every company my father worked for credited him for their increased sales and growth. He just had a natural gift for landing new clients. Even his competition had high praise for my father. They may not have liked him because, well, he kept landing the clients that they wanted to get, but they respected him. And as far as I know, nobody ever talked ill of my dad. And that's because everybody that I knew liked and trusted him. Now, I didn't understand all of this while I was growing up, or more likely, I just didn't really pay much attention to it. But my dad just had an ability to draw people to him. I always found it uncanny how he could run into people he knew no matter where we were. Anywhere we went, somebody would recognize my dad, and obviously he must have made enough of an impression on them for them to go out of their way to come and say hi to him. And it didn't matter if we were in a restaurant or a mall downtown or halfway across the country. There was bound to be somebody there my dad knew. I remember taking a summer road trip with my parents when I was young. We were driving through the state of Maine in the USA when my dad pulled into a gas station. While filling up the car, another car pulled in, and when the driver got out, he turned to my father, got a big smile on his face, and greeted him by name. It turned out to be somebody my dad had met at an electrical convention several years prior, and at the convention they had only talked for a few minutes. But my dad had made enough of an impression on the man that he never forgot him. He remembered my dad, and he was genuinely happy to see him and greet him again. The first time my family ever visited Vancouver, British Columbia, and for those of you who don't know the geography of Canada, that's way on the other side of the country from where I am, roughly about 4,700 kilometers away from where I live. Well, when we were there for the very first time, my dad ran into not one, not two, but 3 different people that he knew. My mom and I just would shake our head dumbfounded, not only at how many people my dad knew, but at how happy they always seemed to be to see him. And this seemingly magical skill, for lack of a better word, that my father possessed always amazed me. And it wasn't until I was older and I started my career at the print shop that my dad let me in on his quote-unquote little secret. One day, shortly after I graduated and I started working, I was sitting down with my father and he told me the following. He said, "Mark, if you want to do well in business, you have to work hard, never complain unless it's absolutely necessary, and most importantly, you need people to like you. You see, the more people who like you, the easier it'll be for you to succeed in whatever venture you set out to do." And of course, I would ask, well, how do you get people to like you? And this is what my dad told me. Now, of course, I'm not giving it to you word for word. I'm going to break it down into steps, which my dad didn't really do, but it'll benefit the podcast more. But this is the overall, call it instructions, that my dad gave me way back then. Step number 1, always smile when you greet someone. Doesn't matter what sort of mood you're in, whenever you're greeting somebody, you should smile. A smile is a natural diffuser. When you smile as you greet someone, it shows that you accept them and you're genuinely interested in talking with them. It makes the person feel welcome. A smile creates positive energy. It sets people at ease. And when people are at ease, it makes it easier for them to open up to you. So it's a lot easier to trust someone who smiles than someone who doesn't. So always smile when you greet somebody. Step number 2, always say hello with a firm handshake as you look the person straight in the eye. A handshake tells a lot about a person. A weak handshake gives the impression of doubt and lack of confidence, where a strong bone-crushing handshake gives the impression of someone who is overconfident or trying to assert authority or dominance. You want to be in the middle, offering a firm, steady handshake that instills confidence as well as respect for the person whose hands you're shaking. Now, I know in the time that I'm recording this, there's a worldwide pandemic is still going on, and a handshake is kind of frowned upon right now. But I'm confident that once all of this stuff is behind us, the handshake will make a return. So you should be ready to start offering them again. Whether you like it or not, a handshake is a key element in getting people to like, trust, and want to work with you. Now, a handshake is something that my father was never stingy in offering. In fact, I remember my friends in high school telling me how much they liked my dad because every time they came over to my house, he would get up out of his chair, whether he was reading his newspaper or whatever, he would smile and he would shake each of their hands and ask them how they were doing. And they said that unlike all the other kids' fathers who never paid much attention to us when we went over, mine always made an effort. And my friends said they felt welcome when they came to my place. I also remember my father getting down on one knee to shake hands of young children whenever somebody he knew introduced their kids. If we ran into somebody at the mall or whatever and they had their children with them, my dad would get down at their level and shake their hands. And it made a big impression on the kids as well as their parents. And people remember that sort of thing. So my dad never missed the opportunity to shake somebody's hands. And I'm proud to say that it's a trait I picked up from him. And I look forward to the day when I can start shaking people's hands again. Now, step number 3, and this one is an important one, is try to use a person's name in conversation as much as possible. Since birth, we're conditioned to the sound of our own name. We react to it in a way that we don't react to anything else. Our name is probably one of the most precious sounds in the world to us. I know I pay special attention to any character in a book, TV show, or movie that's named Mark. I remember feeling extra special as a kid when I found out that the actor who plays Luke Skywalker's name was Mark, the same name as me. Whenever you use someone's name in conversation, you're telling that person that you care about them, that you find them important, and that you respect them enough to use their name. Now, this could be a little bit tricky, especially if you're not good with names. I know I'm not nearly as good as my dad. He could remember the name of people that it had been a decade since he had seen them, and when he saw them, he knew exactly what their name was. So I'm not that good, but I try my best. But something to remember is you should never be ashamed to tell somebody that you forgot their name. In fact, by saying that you don't remember and asking them to repeat their name, you're actually telling the person that you care enough about them that you want to know their name. Just don't make a habit of forgetting their name, or eventually it'll backfire on you. Now, I know that anytime I answer the phone here, the very first thing I do is write down. I've got a notepad and a pencil always in front of me. Very first thing I do is write down the person's name as they say it. That way I can refer to them as we're conversing, as we're talking, as I'm answering them, I can use their name. And if the person doesn't offer their name, one of the very first questions I ask before continuing with anything is, what is their name? And then I make sure to use it. After all, what do you think sounds more personable? Yeah, I'd love to work with you on this project. I'll send you a quote by the end of the day. Or, I'd love to work with you on this, Sarah. I'll send you a quote by the end of the day. Using the person's name in your communication sounds friendlier, and it instills that sense of respect, which, from their end, creates a sense of trust and like. This is a tactic that most good salespeople use on a regular basis because it works. And so can you when you're talking to clients. And step number 4, the last step, is show interest in the people you're talking to. If you ask any dating expert, and I'm no expert on dating, but if you ask one of them, they'll tell you that one of the most attractive features in a date is someone who shows more interest in you than in sharing about themselves. Now, chances are you're not seeking any sort of romantic relationship with your clients, but the principles of dating still apply. The more you talk about and express interest in the client, the more inclined they'll be to like, trust, and want to work with you. Now, the easiest way to accomplish this is by asking questions. Most conversations involve 2 or more people sharing their own views. This is why questions are great attention grabbers. Questions disrupt the normal flow of conversation by focusing what you say on the other party. According to the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, the best type of question to ask is a follow-up question. Not only does a follow-up question refocus the conversation on the client, but it shows them that you were paying attention to what they were saying and that you were interested enough in what they had to say to want to know more about it. And questions don't have to be specifically about the topic of conversation. In fact, the best questions are unexpected ones. For example, if a client tells you that they came up with the idea while they were out camping with their family, instead of asking a question about the idea, ask them a question about the camping trip. Where did they go? How was the weather? Did you see any wildlife? It's basic human nature. We like to feel important. We like to feel special. And we feel that way when people ask us questions and want to know more about us. So by asking questions, especially follow-up questions, you make the client feel special. And when you make somebody feel special, they'll be much more inclined to like, trust, and want to work with you. Now, of course, I expanded on what my father originally told me. He didn't tell it to me in this way, but those are basically the 4 steps that he gave me. Always smile when you greet somebody. Always say hello with a firm handshake as you look them in the eye. Try to use the person's name in conversation as much as possible and show interest in the person you're talking to. These are the cornerstones to any salesperson's success. And when put together, they create a powerful impression on the person or the people that you're dealing with. Imagine if you walk into a car dealership and the salesperson sees you and calls at you from across the showroom floor. "Hi, can I help you with something?" "Yes, I'd like to see your newest models of SUV." "Sounds good. Follow me over here and I'll show them to you." Compared to a salesperson who responds this way. You walk into a car dealership and the salesperson gets up from behind their desks. He approaches you with his hand held out and says, "Hi, I'm Chris." And he shakes your hand and waits for you to reply. "Hi, Chris, I'm Mark. Nice to meet you, Mark. What can I help you with today?" "I'd like to see your newest models of SUV." "Sounds good. Tell me, Mark, have you ever owned an SUV before?" he asks as he leads me over to the SUVs. I don't know about you, but even though it's such a small difference, this second guy, in just a few seconds, makes a much better first impression. And if I had to go just on that initial greeting, I would choose to deal with that second guy over the first one every time. Because he followed the steps. He smiled. He looked happy to see me. He greeted me with a handshake, introduced himself, and then asked me for my name. And then he used my name in conversation as he was asking me questions. And by doing so, he makes me feel at ease. He makes me like him a bit more. He makes me trust him a bit more. And if everything works out, I'll want to buy an SUV from him. Well, the same thing applies to clients. Remember, they would much prefer work with a good designer they like than an amazing designer they don't like. But their ideal choice is working with an amazing designer that they also happen to like. And that's where you come in. The more you can get people to like, trust, and want to work with you, the faster your design business will grow and succeed. So smile, shake hands, once we can again, of course. Look people in the eye, use their name, and ask questions, especially follow-up questions. If you do all of this, you'll be on the right path to landing a lot more clients. Now, just a side note here, I know I talked about my father in the past tense, but my father is actually still with us. It's just he's 93 years old, he's in a home, and he's suffering from extreme dementia. So it's been quite a while since I've been able to get any good business advice out of him. So that's kind of why I talked about him in the past tense. But every once in a while, during a conversation, some of his old self will peek through and I'll garner some little bit of wisdom that just proves what sort of person he was. Yep, that's my dad. Now, I would love to know what you thought of this episode. Please leave me a comment by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 245. Now, before I go, I want to remind you that time is running out to sign up for the Resourceful Designer community if you want early access and the special bonus. You have until February 1st. Otherwise, you'll have to wait till the beginning of March and there won't be any bonus. So head on over to resourcefuldesigner.com/community. And once again, the resource of the week was Arttext, an amazing program that I've been using for years to create very intricate, stunning looking, and fun headings and text that just talking about it doesn't do it justice. So if you design on a Mac, I highly suggest you check it out and see if it's something you can use. Visit resourcefuldesigner.com/arttext, all one word. So that's it for me. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you'd be so inclined to do me a favor, you know another designer that can benefit from this podcast, please let them know about it. They can find the podcast everywhere podcasts can be found, and they can even download the apps for iOS or Android and listen through them. So that's it for this episode. Thank you so much. I am Mark Decote, wishing you all the best with your design business and reminding you to stay creative.
Thanks for listening to the Resourceful Designer Podcast at resourcefuldesigner.com.